Alright, we're going to do this real gritty then. No intro music, no series, no nothing. This is just myself, Matt Waters, and Ben Phillips. Ben, you've seen The Joker. You were the last of the people affiliated with this site to see it. At the time of this recording, have already recorded a podcast with Mike Thomas where we reviewed it as part of our The Tape Crusaders podcast, which is all the Batman movies. And I didn't care for it. And I did my best, I thought, to stand my ground with Mike Thomas, who very much loved it. Or not very much loved it, very much liked it, let's put it that way. He wasn't gushing about it being amazing. But, you know, he has a way of talking me around, and I spent the next few days being like, oh god, I wish I'd said this, I wish I'd said that. And you now have finally seen it, and you do not have kind words to say about it, do you? So, as I've already talked about it for like a half hour or more, I'm going to let you go, and I'm just going to jump in here and there.
So I literally saw it this afternoon. We did it as a double bill with a Lion King, because we hadn't seen Lion King yet.
Which one do you hate more?
I fully went into this thinking, like, Lion King is going to bore the shit out of me, and Joker will be, like, a competent movie that maybe I disagree with on, like, some personal level. But, like, I'll come away thinking Joker's, like, a better film at the end of it. And I came away thinking the exact opposite, where I think Joker is, like, a reprehensible piece of shit.
Right, before we get into that, do you think it is at least well shot and
It's a fully competent movie with people behind the scenes and behind the camera who know what they're doing.
Yes.
Like, it's not an, like, atrocious piece of filmmaking like Suicide Squad is.
Yes, and I think that's enough to... I think by the time people hear this, there will be a ranking on the site that's compiled by the four of us, me, you, Mike Thomas, and Jerome Cusson. Aggregated rankings, each person gets 2 movies. One good one bad one, theoretically. And a couple of us ranked it in the middle because of that, because it is competently made, and someone put it very, very high, and you have put it very, very low. And I would say that, like, it is hard to get around the fact that it looks really good, and there's no, like, bad performances or, like, embarrassing moments beyond the content, what is being presented, like, ideologically and all of that. So that stuff alone made me put it in the middle of the pack. I dislike it enough to put it below the top stuff, but I can't deny that there is just outright embarrassing stuff in some of the other DC movies. But that's not the key issue here. Like, that, I mean, that's all whatever. But the content being presented, here is the most iconic fictional villain of our times.
Outside of Darth Vader, maybe.
Yes.
Like, it's like a 1A, 1B. It's like Darth Vader and the Joker.
Yes, and we're not saying best, we're saying most iconic, because for me, Doom is above Joker always. But a massively popular, infamous character, the Joker, and here's how we got to him being this. And I think that is where it is between disgusting and, like, rote and uninspired. But
yeah, I think it's obvious. Like, if on my list I had Suicide Squad third from the bottom, which is higher than anyone else.
Yes.
I think I was cushioned in that I watched that movie in the comfort of my own living room rather than at the cinema. Like, the 2 movies that probably could have been worse if I'd gone to actually pay money for them were Suicide Squad and Justice League. Every other DC movie I paid to see in a cinema. But yeah, like, I mean, like, my bottom is Batman v Superman, and it's kind of a similar reason for Joker, which, like, Batman v Superman I find is just a fundamental misunderstanding of the 2 core characters at the heart of it. And I can't say that they fundamentally misunderstand the Joker, but I think they rob Joker of some of the mystique by having this origin story.
Yeah.
It's the big issue with the Killing Joke, where the Killing Joke kind of goes through and makes a point of having a definitive version of the Joker. And Alan Moore roundly says it's the worst thing he's ever written.
But it does also at the end say, hey, multiple choice.
Yeah.
And it is called into doubt if any of what he said is true. And I took the ending of Joker, the movie, to potentially be him doing that with this, you know, like, oh, you wouldn't get my joke or whatever. Because it's like, how did we get from him being free and on the run to in Arkham or whatever? But maybe it's not. But it's not coming down hard enough on being like, or not, in my opinion.
I mean, I've seen them say that this isn't the Joker from Batman's Joker.
I've heard that as well, that Arthur Fleck inspired one of the many clowns out there. Maybe the Joe Chill character that goes down in a mask is the, like, 1989 Batman movie Joe Chill. Sorry, Joker, because that's what they did in that for unannounced reasons.
That scene, I audibly sighed when I saw the Zorro, like, name on the standee. I was just like, oh god, they're not doing this. this, are they? We're not having another fucking Batman-related movie. Show me the deaths of the Waynes. I
sort of liked the cock tease of it earlier, where he's working as a theatre usher and he sees Thomas Wayne, and you're like, oh shit, is it going to go down here and now? And it's like, no, it's not. And I really kind of wish they left it there. I think what we need to dig into here is something that I feel guilty about not going harder on, and is like the like elevator pitch of this is like, or some people's takeaway is like, oh wow, they're like really highlighting mental illness and like a marginalized section of society and all this. But you came out of this, and I think one of the first texts you sent me was just sort of like, they never bothered to actually define what his mental illness is. And you're so fucking right. It's just, it is a person with no experience of mental illness making a thing about mental illness.
I mean, this is the thing that you have on like fucking Big Bang Theory, where Sheldon is never diagnosed with any form of kind of like thing, and so it gives them a lot of leeway to just kind of go like, and this is what he is today. But it's like, that's not what it is. Like, you're making these stories about people with mental health problems, and by not defining them, you make it come out to be this kind of like, oh look, this big bad boogeyman of health. And when we're already so scared to talk about mental health in society, when you put out a movie like this that literally says, oh, if you take away funding and medication from these people, they're a week away from going on a mass murder spree and inspiring some kind of like weird left-leaning economic cult that's going to go murder the rich, and you're like, what the fuck do you think?
And like, you know, maybe we should be murdering the rich, and maybe society is fucked and all of this, but like, it's this sort of catch-all, one-size-fits-all, he's just got problems, man. And like,
the movie does so much shorthand behind it. It's like, oh, you're already on 7 medications, Arthur, we can't put you on any more, they must be doing something. And then the funding gets cut, and then we see him like, he's finished most of the pills and he's got 2 generic things left. They never show you what he's actually using, and it's just frustrating to watch it vilified in this way, that the big villain at the centre of this, and then they come away and they go like, oh, but also he was abused when he was a child, and this is the crux of all his mental health issues.
The thing with the mother really bothered me, because like, I'm not saying they needed to tell me why he chose to kill his mother, but like, an interpretation is, I don't know whether or not it's true that I'm adopted, but either way I'm angry at you, you die now. And it's like, and they also make, his mother was committed to Arkham Asylum, so she also suffered from mental health problems, and her punishment for this is to be murdered by her own son.
And the thing is, even that's debatable, because it's like, you've got the question of like, we exist in a world in which the rich are obviously being vilified kind of in this movie, even though everyone kind of comes out and says positive words about them at some point in the movie.
Is she telling every word of the truth? Is Arthur the love child of Thomas Wayne? Did he have her committed to shut her up?
I mean, because the back of the letter, the photo that she's got is like, you look pretty in this, TW, which kind of like, they're trying to leave it vague, like whether or not Thomas Wayne is such an evil piece of shit that he will fake papers for adoption and to get this woman committed to avoid the pain of having an illegitimate love child out there. And the movie never comes down on the other side, and it's such a weird thing to come down one side of, because either way you break it down, either his mother lied to him his entire life, but because she's actually suffers from form of delusion, in which Arthur then sentences her to death for, or she's vilified by the same state that is the crux villain of kind of like so much of the movie, even though we're following around the mass murderer. The movie makes all these points, and it kind of comes off as being like politics light, where it's like rich bad,
Ben Shapiro level, like fucking philosophical, like nonsense.
But even then, it's like like we need to eat the rich and stuff like that. But it keeps on making these points. Like Todd Phillips has come out saying this isn't a political movie. The Joker makes a point of saying I'm not a political figure. But by having just these kind of like weird sketches in the background, it just is completely toothless and doesn't say anything about the society we live in.
Yeah, I think before you even saw it, you put it to me as like, your impression was it was going to be like, Todd Phillips is just showing you a bad person and like telling you the world is bad, and you already know that, and if he's not offering anything other than that, then what's kind of the point? And I agree with you there, and something that I really, really, really wish I'd said to Mike was, no matter what you feel about like a film's responsibility to, you know, not be insightful of violence or whatever, I personally don't care for movies where someone just goes, look at this shit character, look what a piece of shit this person is, and like that puts me off a number of indie movies. And it's like, there are better ones than this that still do that, and I acknowledge they're probably good, but just, it's never going to be my taste to just be like, look at this like irredeemable piece of shit, isn't the world kind of shitty and stuff? Can you see a bit of yourself in him? You shouldn't, he's bad.
It's so weird that Joaquin Phoenix made this movie a couple of years ago when you were never really here, and obviously in that movie he's playing someone who is fundamentally more heroic coded, even though they're still like a hired killer and stuff like that. But there are so many beats in this movie that kind of play so similarly to the Joker, including his main character having his relationship with his mother and stuff like that. and issues with kind of like suicidal thoughts and all these different things. But at the end of the day, You Were Never Really Here is a fundamentally better crafted movie than this. Lynn Ramsey's a better director than Todd Phillips. If you want to see Joker, I would be so much happier if I walked in to see a Screaming the Joker and one of the projectors had just kind of gone like, fuck it, we're going to put You Never Really Here on because it's a better movie. and I would get to sit there and watch this 90-minute lean, tense as hell Hitman movie, which has more to say and is more careful in kind of like its depictions of brutality and violence than this movie ever is. So my partner sat there next to me and I could tell she hated it, this movie. Like the moment when he kills the other guy who like gave him the gun in his apartment, and like that moment of just out of nowhere violence and all the rest of it. And the thing is, the scene afterwards with the other colleague who's like trying to get out, but he's too small to reach the lock on the door and stuff like that. And people in our theatre were laughing, and it was just they were like full on laughing at like this. Look at this physical humour bit, and it was like, this is
kill him, Joker, go kill all the people.
Yeah, it was such a fundamental. I don't know if it was nervous laughter or what it was, but it just made me feel uncomfortable that like if that's the level of humor or like what we are supposed to be reading humor on in this movie, then I'm not in on this joke. I'm not in on feeling comfortable with this movie doing this.
Where do you fall on the issue of, it's a very big broad topic, so we could be here for hours, so we'll try and like do it specifically to Joker, but like art's responsibility to like say something or like pick a side. On some level I agree with Mike that like filmmakers shouldn't be beholden to how an audience could take their film, and like, you know, you and I are big video game people, and like the debate comes up all the fucking time about, do violent video games make kids go do violent shit? And I think you and I are both resoundingly on the no side, but this feels so different to me, and like I can't escape the fact that this film feels like a fucking incel training manual and is just so coded with red flags that it doesn't bother to like say are red flags. But then I also found it difficult to argue around the fact that like, you know, people can see something that has none of this shit in and still turn it into something that is bad, you know, like latch onto something they shouldn't.
I think it's a weird one in that I don't think this movie is going to form a legion of
clowns.
Jokers. Or Jokers to go out there and stuff like that. But then again, you like, who would have thought that V for Vendetta would have inspired an entire movement called Anonymous?
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I mean, Anonymous is obviously like not a good organisation, but
no. But like, do you think films need, art in general, but the films kind of need to, like, I don't think they need to tell an audience how to feel, but I do think there needs to be something a little bit more like, this is a really bad guy you shouldn't want to be like, rather than just like presenting him as is, giving no comment on the more subtle red flag behaviour.
Yeah, I think the issue,
don't latch on to a stranger in a corridor because you had one tiny interaction. Don't do that shit. Don't follow people around. Don't put your hands on a child, especially when you don't know. Those kinds of things are just sort of brushed off and not made a big deal about, because it's in service of a much larger story about, look at the clown man who kills people.
Yeah, I think the issue is that the movie is so toothless in coming down on any particular side.
Yeah.
It just kind of exists. It doesn't have a political bent. It doesn't have anything interesting to say about any of this stuff. And at the end of the day, they are fundamentally trying to make Arthur Fleck sympathetic in some ways, even though we know he's going to turn to the Joker. Even when we exist in this thing where like Joker is the villain in so many things, he's still the image that is on all the t-shirts. Like, there are more Joker t-shirts in existence than there are Batman t-shirts at this point.
Yeah, I would imagine. So everyone's got the fucking poster from Killing Joke.
Yeah, and like, this is a fundamentally villainous character, and giving that air of sympathy to him kind of robs that character of some of its power, or it makes it more okay for them to put this merchandise on. And obviously they haven't softened him. He still murders people in this movie, but by putting him front and center in as many projects, and DC are doing so many comic books at the moment which are putting Joker front and center, it feels like there is a level of like, we condone, not that we condone this, but that we
come get that violent psychopathy shit you like.
Yeah, and I'm sure both of us can say like there are Joker stories we love. Like, I mean, obviously Heath Ledger is fantastic in The Dark Knight. We both like what Scott Snyder did with the Joker in his most recent comic run. They're far more like villainously coded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think this movie is irresponsible. Like, not getting away from like what impact it could have on society. I just think the fundamental thing that I came away from this movie thinking was, this feels irresponsible in its depiction of mental health.
Yes.
And I have many close personal friends who've struggled with mental health, and to see a movie kind of not vilify them in this way just made me feel uncomfortable and bad. And I know the movie's kind of doing that thing where it's like, oh, but this is what we need to do as a society if we took away all these support systems for people with mental health. But at the end of the day, it's still treating them with kids gloves and kind of going like, oh, but they wouldn't last 2 weeks without medication, and we're a couple of days away from an entire city erupting into this level of violence. And it just made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway. No matter what was said or thought about it, I cannot escape a feeling of discomfort, of being uncomfortable, and not in the look at this edgy, challenging piece of art way, just in a it makes me itchy. And I think what you said about like an irresponsibility towards the depiction of mental health is spot on. And these are things I wish I had said a few days earlier, and I also wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about it on the website, because I would imagine the list is out there and this movie is going to be a lot higher than you would want it to be.
Yeah,
so...
but this is basically like, I'm not writing the blurb for Joker.
No.
I've taken my own personal albatross movie for the DCEU, but I'm also the only one of us at the real world who will not have an outlet to say anything about this movie. And I am so disheartened because my partner turned to me halfway through the movie and said, "Is that Justin Theroux as a celebrity guest on the show?" And I was like, "No, it's not. It doesn't look like him." And no, I'm looking at it now. It was Justin Theroux, and
it sure was.
My big dick boy, what are you doing?
Well, hopefully he'll turn up in Watchmen and have his big dick all blue. Cool. We're going to go record an episode of a different podcast now and feel better about everything. But some more Joker thoughts for you.